Hello, my name is Hannah Cole. I'm in the Conflict 435 class with Dr. Patricia Malden. And today I will be doing my final assignment, our video essay number 3, where I will be looking at the works of Gilligan, Mitchell and Kelly, Jancy and Jancy, as well as cross-referencing our examination of the Rwanda case study, and concluding with a brief dive into what I've learned and what I hope to see in the future. So I'm really excited for this assignment. It's a little bit different from what we've done in the past. I like to think that I'm comfortable in front of a camera because I've done videos with my internship in the past. However, this is a little bit different for me because it's a video essay rather than a written essay. So, a disclaimer, I do have some notes, and if you hear some paper rustling, that's what it is. However, I will do my best to avoid using them as much as possible and basically give you a brief discussion of my analysis and what I've learned and, what some insights may be by looking into all of these articles. So yeah, without further ado, I'll launch right into my introduction and then we'll get into each of the articles. Here we go. So first, we will look into the Gilligan article and explore the themes of social cohesion and conflict in their relationship. Then we will move into the Mitchell and Kelly article and look at the case study of Belfast, Northern Ireland, and examine the way that different kinds of spaces and the interactions between them can be utilized or exist as a result of conflict. Following that, we will take the Jancy and Jancy article and examine theories of change with the 2 articles that we examined previous to that. Do a brief wrap-up following all of those analyses, and to conclude, I will present my own experience and what I see for the future with what we've talked about throughout this video essay. So first, the Gilligan article. This article, I want to start with its main point as a quote. So, damage to social cohesion undermines the community's collective action capacity and may contribute to conflict and underdevelopment traps. So this is one argument made by the article that talks about social cohesion is affected by conflict. An increase of conflict decreases the amount of social cohesion that is present within a community. However, another argument that is made within this article is that violence as a phenomenon can create social cohesion. And when I think about this, what comes to mind is different kind of effects of terrorism. Terrorist groups in themselves can attract individuals who may or may not feel like they have a place in the social systems. So they find social cohesion through the violence that terrorist groups partake in, and find their identity by this group ideology. And so in that case, the violence is what causes, or is what appeals to some individuals to joining terrorist groups. Now, that's not always the case, but it is a singular kind of draw. On the other hand, violence as a cause of social cohesion can be, in response to violence rather than violence as a draw. And the big thing that comes to mind for this, for me, is recalling the events of 9/11 and witnessing what the United States of America did in the aftermath of that terrorist attack. And so, we experienced as a country this horrific event and found each other in an incredible display of patriotism, and an increase in social cohesion in the years following 9/11 because we found the violent acts to be something that we could all agree that we disagreed with, essentially. And so that violence was a factor in the social cohesion that emerged in those years. This particular article by Gilligan focuses on Nepal after the Civil War, but as I presented before, there are definitely other ways that this particular discussion can be examined. Moving into the Mitchell and Kelly article, which looks at Ireland and particular areas where an inner city and outer city and rural areas, etc., kind of emerge and present themselves as a perhaps result of conflict in the area. And Mitchell and Kelly argue that we can't look at the divergence between the areas as a result. Rather, we need to take these areas and utilize them to be a method of peace building. And so within these areas manifests a very physical tactic by, bridging the gap between a distinct, different geographic, division. And so what Mitchell and Kelly basically say, so they propose 3 strategies that are important in noting for their discussion. And these strategies are deterritorialization by means of internationalization, ambiguous access and the right to peaceful spaces, and endless transformation. And so the 2 that we're going to focus on are the deterritorialization by means of internationalization and the endless transformation, as those were detailed as requirements for this video essay. So, deterritorialization is, it involves the unhinging of spaces from their literal physical landscapes and local cultures and reshaping through the imposition of new codes for how the spaces in question should be occupied and used. The international element of peace interventions is crucial in this respect. Rather, it has the effect of unanchoring the space in question from their local settings and rendering them generic spaces of violence or conflict to be transformed into international sites of peace. And so that's a lot of words describing a phenomenon in which we take this space that exists as a violent, chaotic meeting of different kinds of people and ideologies and backgrounds, and deterritorialize it, take away the politicized nature of it, and move it towards an area that then becomes kind of peace building oriented. Something that comes to mind when you think of this for me is the demilitarized zone on the border of North and South Korea. Obviously, the North and South Korea are still at war as of now, but the idea of building an area between the 2 countries that is used for negotiations rather than an area where guns are pointed at each other constantly could be a very extreme manifestation of what the Mitchell and Kelly article proposes. And moving into the endless transformation, we look at utilizing a space and understanding that peace building is not a static end goal type of procedure. You have to, take a step back, look at the situation, and understand that when you attempt peace building, it's not something that you will see accomplished. Endless transformation is really, really understanding that you have to continuously put in effort and move forward and reach a better kind of peace. And there's no way to understand, you're always trying to keep the system and situation dynamic. A famous conflict resolver, once said, you can't go into, and I'm paraphrasing here, you can't go into a conflict expecting to get out there in a year or 2. You have to understand that this is going to take at least a decade, if not more. And so utilizing the idea of endless transformation allows you to move into that mindset of, we're going into this situation, we're going to designate this area as an area of peace building, and we're not going to say what that peace is going to be. We're going to stay here and take this project on in the long haul and hopefully encourage a sustainable, positive kind of peace. So now I'm going to move into the Jancy article kind of analysis, looking at what these theories of change and how and how they apply to these two particular case studies. So the two I'm going to look at are the grassroots mobilization as conflict resolution and healthy relationships and connections theory. So the grassroots mobilization I find to be really applicable to these two articles because when you look at what a grassroots mobilization is capable of doing, you find that it creates a very sustainable kind of peace. And so in the Gilligan article, you find that the grassroots mobilization is applicable in that it if you find social cohesion through an anti-violence kind of movement, then if you utilize the victims and create their own mobilization, you empower them, you find that it is perhaps very appealing to others in their plight, and you can get more motivation, and you get the victims' stories heard, and therefore you are creating a lasting impact and some sort of sustainable peace. And by sharing stories and enabling grassroots movements, you can then perhaps also encourage a different kind of social cohesion as well. Additionally, the healthy relationships and connections theory. This theory stresses the importance of human relationships and how they can promote peace building. And this is understandably very applicable to both the Gilligan and the Mitchell and Kelly article because both of these articles can be broken down into interpersonal interactions and how they affect day-to-day lives of people in Nepal and people in Ireland and people in Rwanda. And so you can bring in the ideas of the sense of community is heavily enforced in the Rwandans, so much that it's almost invasive and aggressive. And so we can look at how social cohesion is almost like something that's imposed upon the Rwandans. I wrote about that, I think, in my second essay, looking at what it meant to be in a social setting and how identities are questioned, and what kind of violence may come up and challenge those identities and social cohesion as well. It's very interesting to see how all of these things do tie in, and what that means for conflict resolution as well. And so finally, I know that last section was a little brief, but I do want to get into what this class has meant for me. I've really, really learned a lot in terms of what it means to be a individual that seeks to build peace. I've always known that I wanted to be diplomatic in my career pursuits. However, I don't think I really knew what that entailed. I think this class definitely encouraged me to embrace the gray zones and understand that those are okay, and that not only are they okay, but they can be even utilized. And within those gray areas, you can learn a lot and you can grow a lot. It's not always black and white. I've also learned that there are many different aspects to peace building. It's not just listening to somebody's story and regurgitating it. You can always move forward in different cases differently. There's no one cookie cutter solution, and that's just the fact of the matter. And this class, as well as the entire fellowship, has really shown me that that is the case. And I'm so happy to have had this experience and to take it as I move forward with my college education and my career. So thank you very much.